Interested in learning unique editing techniques? Subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for more exciting and informative videos created just for you. Hi everyone, we've captured some magical moments of our kids playing in the forest. And we're excited to share a few tips and some behind-the-scenes insights with you. For this photo shoot, we used the Sony a7R III. I really love its powerful sensor. It's a full-frame camera, and we paired it with the Sigma 85mm art lens, which is absolutely brilliant. We didn't use any flashes, reflectors, or artificial lighting, just the sunset and us. Now, let's talk about the camera settings. We shot with the lens wide open at f1.4, get that beautiful depth of field. I set the shutter speed quite fast, around 1/1600, and I adjusted the white balance manually to 5800K. The most important thing is to know your gear. When photographing during golden hour, most professional photographers use manual mode. This lets you set the aperture, shutter speed, and ISO yourself. But during sunset, light conditions change quickly, so you need to monitor the exposure meter carefully. As it gets darker, constantly adjusting the shutter speed can be a bit annoying. So here's a helpful tip to save time. Switch to aperture priority mode, A. This way, you only control the aperture, and the camera automatically adjusts the shutter speed for proper exposure. I usually set my exposure compensation to -0.3. This slightly darkens the image, which helps avoid overexposing bright areas like the sun. Shooting during golden hour, that's the last 1 to 3 hours of daylight, gives stunning results. And remember, less is more. Keep your photos simple. When photographing kids, let them be themselves. Let them play and live their childhood freely in front of the camera. Ready to level up your editing? Julia's in-depth tutorial is now available to watch.
Hi everyone, today we will edit this outdoor image, and you can already see here that I have already some changes as they were saved on the raw file. So everything I did, I used the exposure at about +10. Normally for such images I bring the highlights down because I just want to keep more detail in some parts of the image. As you can see, if we reduce, we have much more detail, especially on those overexposed parts. And of course, shadows and blacks we should lift. In this way, we will not have too dark parts on our image. And that's it. What I could do more, I would go to the... just a moment. We could go here. Right-click with the mouse and we could use radial gradient. We could immediately select the area that we want. We could change the size of the circle, as you can see. And if we want, we could add more light here in the center of the image and brighten a bit the faces of our models. So we just doing like this, highlights again a bit down. We could add a bit warmth at the same time. Let's try about +9, 10. And it looks like this. You can see here we could turn on, turn off to see the difference, and you can see perfectly we already have much more attention in the center of the image and on our models. So we will open our image in Photoshop. Okay. So it looks like this. We would need our layers and our actions. So, as you can see, very important, we have already lightened a bit the center of the image and we warmed up the faces of the models. Maybe we could use the curves and lighten a bit more the face of the boy. Like this. So it's more similar to the tones of the face of the girl now. Here as well. Okay. So like this. And we could start with our editing. First of all, we of course could use our liquify tool. So we could liquify a bit the hairs. Like this. I would liquefy also a bit the dress. Okay. Okay, we would click OK. And we can see those tiny adjustments. It looks better now, I think. Very careful is that we don't liquefy anything like the contours of the face. It's better to check. And we can flatten the image, duplicate the layer. And what we would do next, I would start with filter, blur gallery, tilt shift. What we can do? Let's try blur at about 80%. And here, as you can see, we could change this transition of the blurs the way we want. Maybe something like this. And we can also play with the effects. I would put light bokeh at about, let's see, 40, bokeh color 80, and light range I would put 150, 151, but you should experiment with your settings. As you can see, we can change here the bokeh color, we can change the light itself, but it's very interesting to experiment with. It looks like very magic. Of course, we would increase the opacity later, but I highly recommend that you would play with those settings because sometimes it's possible to achieve interesting results. So we would click OK. we would reduce the opacity, of course, something about 65%, and would remove from the faces. So we already have blurry background, so it's not that noticeable. We could remove those blurs from the face very quickly, as you can see. Here we would remove as well. So as you can see, we keep just a very tiny bit, and here we have those interesting bokeh lights, as you can see. It looks really magic. So we could keep them. Let's see here. And here we have this light effect. If we think that here is too much, we could reduce the opacity and remove, of course, a bit. Okay. Okay, so I think we'll check here one more time. So I'm satisfied with those results. We would flatten the image, would duplicate the layer. This part for me is a bit distracting. So for this we could use the curve. We could darken, maybe reduce a bit highlights, and we could add matte finish. Something like this. Let's try something like this. Layer mask, Ctrl-I to invert, and we would just brush it over here. From two dark parts we could remove. Don't forget to make your image smaller to see better the difference. So as you can see, it was really way too bright. What we could do more, if we want to darken, we could create empty layer, multiply, pick some peachy color, and at lower opacity we could also paint a bit those lights, for example, also as the option here, for example, as well. If we want keep some more details, and it looks like this. I'm satisfied, and we can flatten the image, duplicate the layer. Now, what we could do more, if we want more attention in the center of the image, we could use Nick Collection. And normally I use dark and light and center, this one, almost for all of my images. So we just can control central luminosity, border luminosity, and center size, and we can place the center manually. So like this. And we can change the center size as well, increase or decrease. So something like this. I think I'm satisfied. I would hit OK. Okay, we could create the layer mask and remove where we want at low opacity, maybe from two dark parts we could remove. And if it's too bright on the face, for example, we could remove from some parts of the face where we want to keep more detail, something like this. Okay. Okay, so if we make the image smaller, we can perfectly see that big difference. We don't have attention on the edges. We only have attention in the center of our image and on our models. It's the most important, very important. And we can flatten the image. If you don't use Nik collection, again, you would go to the camera raw filter. You would just go again to the here, masking. You would use radial gradient. And again, you select the area that you want. You could brighten the centers, darken the edges, but we are ready with this in our Nik collection, so I would not do this again. So if you just don't need, or if you just don't have or don't use Nik collection, then you use this method. We would cancel. So you just use radial gradients in camera raw filter. I would flatten this image. Being only on the background layer, I would like to use my skin blur action, but before that we could use also our spot healing brush. We could remove some spots like this. Okay. Okay. And we can play skin blur action. We would grab our lasso tool. We select the area that we want. And then filter blur, Gaussian blur. And I normally use something between 12 and 13. Click OK. And we select the areas that we want, just to make the skin more uniform. We would remove the effect where we don't need it, obviously. Let's try again, lasso tool. Don't forget that you have to be on the blur layer, so you grab your lasso tool being on the blur layer. And we could change the opacity of the blur or of the whole group at all. We could also create the layer mask, and with black brush we remove this effect where we don't need it. So as you can see, not a big difference, but anyway, it looks a bit better. We can flatten the image, duplicate the layer. Now we could use our actions. We could use brighter highlights, white brush. Let's try it 100%. Again, we would just emphasize the most important, the center of the image and our models. So you can see the difference. We have filled this center of the image with more light now. We can flatten the image, duplicate the layer. What we could do more? We could pick some brighter color from the skin, light peachy, for example. Being on the at about 8% opacity, modus normal, we could just brush a bit on those hard shadows on the legs and hands, and we can create the empty layer, this time soft light at about 11%. Let's try. And as you can see, we just want to make those parts a bit more brighter and not that blue and dark. So you can see perfectly the difference. Now all parts of the body looks more natural in peachy tones. We could put a bit also on the outfit to warm it up a bit. Okay. And even we could put a bit on the face to warm it up as well. So you can see perfectly the difference. If it's too much, we can always use our eraser tool. And it looks like this, much more better now. We could flatten the image, duplicate the layer. And now we could use as well our gradient map toning. So it looks like this. It brings back the depth to the image. And I have used this color, so some warm yellow highlights and some brown shadows. We could control the opacity, of course, if we want, something about 15%. If it's too much, we can always take our black brush and with low opacity, if we want, just remove from two dark parts of our image. So it looks like this, as you can see. We have much more volume and a bit more contrast all over the image. Oops. So it already looks interesting. Like this. And we can flatten the image, duplicate the layer. What we could do more, I think I would use my digital overlay of the flowers. So we just open it. This is the flowers that we photographed. And what we could do, we could just use our rectangular tool, select some area of the flowers that we want, Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, Ctrl-T to invert. Not to invert, but change the size. And I would place these flowers here because these are looking not that interesting. And I would create the layer mask, Ctrl-I to invert, and with white brush, let's try first 100%. I would just add some more beautiful flowers like this. Okay. And then with black brush, let's try 50% opacity. Just blend that all, blend that all, blend that all. Carefully removing. We could switch between black and white. Just to keep those natural. We have to blend that all. We could decrease the opacity as well a bit. So it already looks not that bad. But what we could do more, as you can see, we could use the curve, use this arrow here, use this arrow here. So if we click on it, so all the changes would be applied on the layer below. So we could actually darken them a bit. So like this it looks more natural, I think. And what I would do more, I would use blur tool and we would blur it. As you can see, this part is very blurry and this one is not. So to look more natural, we could just blur it like this, flatten. If we want, for example, to play with the colors, we could use hue and saturation, grab this hand here, pick here, and we can change the colors as well. As you can see, we could play with the saturation. Let's see, magenta. Oops. So as you can see, we can play, and with those colors we could create the layer mask, Ctrl I to invert. And with white brush, let's try something at 70% maybe. You can see we could change the opacity. And now it's matching much more the t-shirt of the boy. So I like it like this. It looks much more interesting now. And we can flatten the image, duplicate the layer. I will come back, would paint as well this part here. Okay, and we can flatten the image, duplicate the layer. What we could do more, we could use our dodge tool from Photoshop. Highlights, let's try it about 80%. We could warm the faces a bit more. And we could emphasize all the highlights that we want. I would emphasize here a bit, those a bit, here as well. Here on the hair. If it's too much, we can always use our erasal tool, control the opacity of the brush, and remove where it's too much. If we want more white highlights, we would use mid-tones. And it has more white tones, as you can see. Don't forget that protect tones turned off. It gives us that poor white tone. Because if you click protect tones, it would keep and protect the tones of your image. So let's see now. So you can see the difference. We have emphasized some highlights of the skin. Maybe we would add a bit more to the eyes. Okay, and we can flatten the image, duplicate the layer. What we could do more? We could use, just a moment, green color pop action. As you can see, it makes the green such more saturated, as you can see. And depending on what you want to achieve, you could perfectly apply it on the greens of your image. But for me, it's too much. So we would create the layer mask. And we would obviously use the black brush. And let's try it about 50%. We would remove from the models as we don't want them that red. So we still can keep some warmth. That's why we remove only 50%. And from the clothes, I would remove even less because I love that it has those warm tones on the clothes. So we can actually keep them. And as you can see, it looks like this. Okay. So this section we could use to saturate our greens and to add a bit warmth. We could flatten the image, duplicate the layer. What we could do more, if we need, we could use our poor skin tone action. Normally I use at about 20%. So if we see some too red parts, we could actually use this action to desaturate the reds. As you can see, it makes a bit brighter and with less reds. So we could check and apply it where we need it. We can flatten the image. What we could do more, we could apply our warm toning action. So as you can see, it gives completely different look. It makes the image warm, and actually the greens also turned warm, as you can see. So maybe we could save all those different looks. So such greens with warm tone in action, we have achieved already this look. So I would like to save it for me to remember later which looks I can achieve with those actions. So it looks very interesting, but it will depend on your taste, of course. But I think I would remove at about 50% from dark parts of the image. From the hairs as well. As you can see, it looks very beautiful on such tones of the clothes. Maybe I would also remove a bit from those greens. And overall, I'm satisfied. We could flatten the image. Now, what we could do more, we could use our color lookup toning. I would show you, so we would play the action. This is just using here color lookup, and if we click twice, we can see I used Fuji Eterna and all those things. So as you can see, if we use it at about 15–20%, what it gives us a bit more contrast and warm tones again, as you can see on the face. So looks like this. Also looks interesting. And if we want, don't forget, when you add contrast to your image, remove those from those two dark parts, just to keep this not that dark. So like this. So this is also one of the methods to add more contrast and a bit more warmth to the image. What we could do more, we could use our action final image pop. If we use it at about 60%, you can see it makes also the image brighter and warmer, but obviously we should remove this effect where we think it's too much or way too bright. I actually love how it looks on the skin, but remember that we started with dodging, but we have never added burning. And I decided to do this at the end just to be able to see the final result, because we have applied lots of toning and I prefer to use the burning after we have applied all those toning process. As you can see, the face is warmer, brighter, and overall the image is a bit brighter now. So this we achieved using our final image pop action that I created in Camera Raw filter. We would flatten the image, duplicate the layer, and now I think I'm ready to add a bit of burning. One of the methods how we could do this, we could use layer, new layer. We could use here soft light, fill with soft light neutral color. Okay. And I would use manually, choose something like this, some brown color, and opacity 100, flow, let's try about 3%. We just carefully add more depth using those using those burning process, as obviously we need more depth, especially on the face. So I prefer to do it at the end, because we have experimented a lot with the toning of our image, and we never knows how that toning would look on those most dark parts of the image. So I prefer to do this now, almost at the end. Like this. For those two overexposed parts, again, we could use our empty layer, multiply, pick some color from the face, and we could always darken a bit where we think it's too much. Also, multiply modus is also one of the methods for burning, so you could use whatever you want. So actually, using empty layer multiply modus, we could use some brown part of the skin, or even from the hairs, and with very low opacity it's always possible to add more burning. When it's too much, we could always remove, of course. Okay. So let's try to use the same color, this one. So opacity 100%, flow about 4 or 5%. And actually we could use the same burning color. We have neutral colors of the outfits, so we could perfectly use this burning for outfits as well. So as you can see, we have much more depth back now. If it's too saturated in the shadows, what we could do is to grab, for example, sponge tool, desaturate it about 6%. Let's try. And we can just desaturate, control the opacity if we want. So It's very useful to grab the sponge tool and to work that with the colors where we need. Okay, we can flatten the image, duplicate the layer. We would use our rosy cheek section. Let's try flow 100%, opacity about 4%. So we have normal modus, as you can see. But we could also use soft light if we want, so it depends. If we want, we could pick the color from the lips or choose it manually. If it's too much, again, we could always remove using our eraser tool. So we could reduce a bit the opacity, I think. And one more method to add tone to the cheeks and lips, we could use, for example, the color balance, and mid-tones we just add reds, and we achieve such peachy tones, as you can see. So I think I would add a bit more peachy tones to the lips. Like this. And as I told you, one more method, we could create empty layer, soft light, pick some color from the lips or choose it manually, and we could also add such colors to the cheeks and lips using soft light. Okay, but this is just to show you the methods to work with. It's obviously too much. And we could flatten the image. I think I would use skin blur action one more time. So again, lasso tool, filter Gaussian blur, because this transition of this highlights from the sun and this dark part, it could be, I think, a bit softer. And we could create the layer mask, black brush, and we just remove where we don't need it. Now it looks a bit softer, and we can flatten the image, duplicate the layer. Okay. What we could do more, we could use brighter face highlight section, for example, white brush. Let's try something like 50%, and as you can see, it makes the skin a bit brighter. The only thing, I would remove this from the shadows a bit to keep those burning that we just did. Okay, we can flatten the image, duplicate the layer. And what we could do more, color lookup toning, we already did. We would use oil paint for the hairs. So white brush, let's try about 70%. And as you can see, it adds such painterly finish to the hands. We could reduce the opacity a bit less. Yes, like this, it's enough. And we would keep it like this. Maybe I would use a bit on the head as well. Don't use it where you have some pattern because it will not look beautiful. So here I already don't like this effect. So like this, we can flatten the image, duplicate the layer. What we could do more, two final steps. I would show you two more possibility of toning of the image. So let's save this one. So we would go to the filter, camera raw filter, and we would go to the color grading. In highlights, we would use warms. So we would actually do split toning now, and it gives us very interesting toning possibilities. So in highlights, we add warm, so as you can see between orange and yellow. And in shadows, we would add the opposite color, something like here. And this way we would achieve very interesting result, very vintage looking, as you can see. We would click OK. So this action I already have somewhere here, camera raw warm cold split toning. This is action that I created using these settings, and as you can see, it gives us very beautiful, interesting finish. I would export this image as well, just to remember all those possibilities of colors that I have. And what I would do, make the image smaller. So as you can see, it also looks very interesting on the face. So I like the result on the face as well. And I think I would maybe remove, let's try or not. So again, everything depends on your taste. But especially I look those on the outfits, as you can see, those interesting tones. Actually, I think I would keep it for now over all the image. We could flatten the image. And very last step of toning, which we could add, this is blues in shadows. And as you can see, it gives completely different result, but also very interesting with such blue tones in the shadows. But I would create the layer mask, and using black brush, I would remove those effects from the warm part of the image. And in this way, we would achieve something like split toning as well. Okay, we could reduce overall opacity. And we could just endless play, of course, with those all settings. But I really like this look that we have warm tones in the highlights and such cold with a bit blues in the shadows. We have here blue flowers, blue t-shirt, and a bit of similar colors in the shadows, and it looks good for me. I like this result. Let's make the image small. As you can see, it also gives us extra contrast, I would say. Separate the models from our background better because of the colors, because of the color difference. And overall, I'm satisfied. We could flatten the image, duplicate the layer, and a few final steps. We would use our sharpen action. Let's try at about 80%. It gives us a lot of sharpness. So you can see the difference. We have much more sharpness in our face. And we can flatten the image. If we want to add even more warmth to the face, we could use our vintage warm toning action. So this was created also using gradient map. We could just Ctrl I. We would press Ctrl I to invert. And for example, at about 40%, if we brush on the face, it gives us extra warmth. So it's sometimes always also useful to use such actions. If we want, we could add more warmth, for example, here, like this. Here. So you can perfectly see the difference. We can flatten the image, duplicate the layer, and I would only darken a bit more the bottom part. It's still distracting to me. Layer mask, Ctrl I to invert. We would apply it here. Let's make the image smaller so it looks like this. And sometimes I also use some greens like this from our image. And let's try it about 20%. No, maybe something darker. We could put it on the edges, or we could also use it in the multiply modus, just to have even more attention on our models. So we could just paint the edges a bit more. Let's make the image smaller so you can see the difference. So like this, we would flatten the image, duplicate the layer, and one more recommendation. If we want to extract more detail from the face, we could make the blacks and shadows a bit up and the highlights down, like this. Maybe in color mixer saturation of oranges we could increase, or sometimes we could also adjust the hue if needed. So this is everything at the end, of course. Okay. I'm looking only on the face now. Oops. If we want to add more redness to the lips, we could add saturation here as well. And we would click OK. And as you can see, we have a bit more detail on the nose, on this overexposed part of the highlights. And actually overall on the image, I also do like the result because we have lifted a bit more the shadows. And we have a bit more details. Now I think I would leave it overall on the photo, would remove only from the edges, like this. Let's see here. One more check on the face. Okay, so I'm satisfied. We could flatter the image and we could see finally our before and afters. So it looks like this. So this was our before image. And this is our full of magic after. Hope you have learned a lot. Have a great day. Bye.
Interested in learning unique editing techniques? Subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for more exciting and informative videos created just for you.